Councillors, and welcome to our first meeting for the 2023 calendar year. As is our normal practice, I'll hand over to the General Manager to read the conditions of the live streaming. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The meeting is being live streamed and or recorded for on-demand viewing via Council's website. Attendance at the meeting is to be taken as consent by a person to their image and or voice being webcast. All speakers should refrain from making any defamatory comments or releasing personal information about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The meeting must not be recorded by others without prior written consent of the Council in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors and staff are obligated to declare conflicts of interest as required under the Local Government Act 1993 and Council's adopted Code of Conduct. Councillors are reminded of their oath of office whereby they have declared and affirmed that they will undertake the duties of the office of Councillor in the best interests of the people of Wentworth Shire and the Wentworth Shire Council, and they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment.
Thanks, Ken. I'll now ask you to be upstanding for the acknowledgement of country and the prayer. I'd like to pay my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. We give thanks and ask for guidance and direction that each of us may fulfil our responsibility to our community and to our country. Amen. Thank you. So, Councillor Rodder, is she on the...
Councillor Rodder there, she's up the form. Yep.
Okay. So we're all here, so there's no apologies. Applications for leave of absence. I have one from the 23rd of February through to the 5th of March. For leave of absence. Councillor Nichols.
I'll be absent from the next council meeting as I have another appointment outside of here, and I'll also be absent with an apology for the February liquor accord meeting, which I attended this week, and it's just a bit early.
So we have an alternative, I think, is Councillor Cooper. Are you on that one? For the liquor accord meeting? Oh. Do we have an alternative? Okay. All right, we'll check that out. All right, any others? Councillor Crisp. Okay. Any others? Have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Linklater, Councillor Cooper. All in favour? Carried. Disclosures of interest. Councillor Beaumont.
Yes, I have a non-pecuniary disclosure of interest in item 911, which is the financial assistance item. I'm a committee member and volunteer for the Wentworth District Racing Committee Club. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Nichols. Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Pecuniary interest in item 9.15.
Okay, and me similar. In item 9.15, I have a significant pecuniary interest. Any others? Okay, can we have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor McAllister, second to Councillor Crisp. All in favour? So carried. Okay, the minutes of The ordinary council meeting held on the 14th of December. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Crisp, Councillor Linklater. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. Right, we were going to have a public forum, but speaker's not here, so we'll continue on. So item 6.1 is outstanding matters from previous meetings. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to open it up? Councillor Cooper, Councillor Beaumont. Open for discussion. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question in relation to the, where am I? Page 48, Performing Arts Looking for a Home. It says there, in the furthest on the right column, action record, recent advice from Crown prevents the concept building being placed on the chosen reserve. Further investigation required prior to organising a meeting. My understanding is that that concept was an old one that may well be reworked. I'm wondering which chosen reserve. Do you know? Yep.
You know, in the discussions I had with the one group, it was on the corner of Pittman and the highway near the old toilet block between the Pittman Avenue and the childcare centre at Baronga.
Is that where the boxing gym is?
Yeah. What's happened in recent times is that the Crown have seen fit to change their position on structures being built on Crown land. So I need to further that in its first instance, because we went into bat saying, well, we've just approved men in a shed, and they were saying, well, that may be not the right outcome. So yeah, we've got to work with Crown and get a system in place, or find freehold land, or whatever the case may be. So sorry, it's not. I thought I had an answer to fix it, and it's not that simple.
Okay, so is there any other land that might be available or usable? And also, just so you know, there is one group that have actually amalgamated three groups. So it's Electric Light Theatre, Musical Society, Mildura, and Mildura Theatre Company.
Three entities that you said, but I knew about that.
Yeah.
I met with the Electric Light Theatre.
Yep. So and I think they've been using that facility for storage for some time.
They've been using not the boxing gym, but the scout hall. Yeah. Up closer to the chemist.
That's right. Yep. Okay.
Other land to be identified where that may be. I'm not too sure at this point in time.
So is the scout hall being used? My understanding is the scouts
only for the storage of Electric Light Theatre is my understanding.
Okay. And that's on Crown land as well?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
There's two parcels of land there. One where that building that we're just talking about, the scout hall, and there's the one that you can do at boxing gym.
Yeah. Okay. And would there be scope perhaps to investigate? I know there's an industrial estate at the back of Baronga there, whether there might be any land available there just to build a great big ass shed just to start with, which can then be fitted out according to purposes, rather than going off a concept plan and trying to organise things around it.
Yep.
And would it be possible for the group, which I think has now become an incorporated body, don't quote me on that, to meet with our grants officer to maybe have a look at what funding might be available? There might also be some funding available, and therefore negotiations to be had with Mildura, who, as I understand, have never wavered in their initial advice that that once the powerhouse was finished they could go back in, although publicity suggests that that's not likely to happen.
May not happen.
They haven't received any advice to the contrary.
Yep. Well, the availability of the grants officer is not a problem. The availability of the industrial land seems like a good initial concept. We don't have any land in there, so it'll be a freehold purchase of land to facilitate that, or as has happened with most of the or a large percentage of the development in there, the original owner of the land, developer of the land, builds a shed and does some kind of lease and further buyback arrangement. So there's opportunities to be explored in that regard.
Yeah, and just noting, I suppose, the reason I'm pushing it a little bit is because the slow pace of things over the river really provides a great opportunity for us. And if we've got 3 major companies that have been around for 90 plus years in the district over this side of the river, it also opens up massive potential for our young ones, those kids that aren't involved in sport like me, who are built a little differently, that like hopping around on stage. And, you know, if there was a big shed, there could be potential for that to become a performing base, and we could potentially eventually, you know, have some sort of competition perhaps with the Art Centre, bring the arts into this region. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 10.1 on page 1 of 3 of the first thing, where I requested the council look at installing solar panels on council buildings. Needed to be suitable council buildings, that's fine. Working with designers to investigate costings. Can you tell me which buildings they're working on, looking at putting them on?
In the first instance, that comment's relative to the Civic Centre, but obviously we'll look at our other larger buildings being football change rooms and or midway and or whatever else. So we'll
Sporting grounds and so on and so forth. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine, because I see when the local government conference that's upcoming states in there that they had 5 direct questions and 15 associated questions on solar panels. So it's one of those things that there's still money around that we don't have to use our own.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good one. Any others out of those? Councillor Beaumont?
Yes, I'd just like to thank the General Manager and his staff for initiating the free access to the Dareton and Wentworth swimming pools, even though it was a little belated in happening. I think it was a good thing, and down the track I would like to see more discussion around the topic of free access for school-aged children to both facilities on an ongoing basis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any others out of those outstanding actions?
Can I just add the point to what Councillor Beaumont just said, that there is an area of Wentworth Shire that doesn't have a pool?
I picked, that might have been commented on, Council. Okay. All in favour? Carried. All right, we're now going to a public forum, is that correct? And
Can I move
Yes,
that
thank
we move into public forum, that recording is suspended, and that whoever speaks can speak now?
seconder, Councillor Nichols, all in favour? Okay, we have Alex Ferndale from Poppy's Takeaway at Dareton to speak about item 9.15. I've declared a pecuniary interest in that, so I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to take the chair and I'll vacate the room along with Councillor Cooper.
Very good. Okay, we've moved into public forum. Alex, would you like to come up and speak, please? 9.15.
you right talking like that, Alex, or do you want to get the mic?
Alex, we have one councillor on video.
Yep. In reference to council item number 915, DA 2022-120, 5 dual occupancy units with lockable carports in Tapio Avenue, Dareton. As already mentioned, I'm Alex Ferndale from Poppy's Takeaway in Dareton. I am objecting to this proposal. My objections are based on it will remove business development, as these are the only vacant shops in Devon, and therefore remove any further opportunity for employment, opportunities for the township, and not fit in with future plans for the town. I've been made aware of there's several people who have already inquired in using the premises for businesses. Examples: hairdressers, laundromat, clothing shop, which would have benefited the town, offered employment opportunities, but were not able to finalise the negotiations with the current landowner for reasons unknown. These got to a point of a lease, signed, returned for the landowner to sign the lease, never did. Which has actually puzzled a lot of people. Also, the development of the residential dwellings does not fit in with the existing business or profiles. May present security issues for existing businesses, being the pharmacy and public post office. It's not a safe environment for people in the residential area. I'm right on the footpath. You know, the front of the building is exposed to the footpath, so forth. It would be, as far as opening your curtains to enjoy the sunshine at the front, I'd advise not to do it. So there's a lot of things that against the proposal to actually turn the shops themselves into units. This type of residential development does not fit in with the current form being it is a main street and highway, not a residential area. I would also like to suggest that if the development was to keep the shop fronts as shops and the development of the units behind the actual building with rear lane access, I would have no objections, as there are already buildings that exist within the main street of Devon. For example, the Devon Mini Mart, which has its shop frontage at the front, residential at the rear lane access. That property is identical in size to the development proposed areas. So as a base, to see how that operates, and seems to operate reasonably well. Also has sold and been occupied as a takeaway shop for a number of years now. In closing, Sam Cavani has offered these premises up for sale with this proposal, subject to council approval. So also leads me to wonder if he actually even intends on doing the proposed development, or whether it's actually to try and further the sale potential of the properties. So I'm well, most residents are unsure whether he'd actually even do the development. So his intentions are unclear. There is interest in renting these premises through businesses, as mentioned. Again, unable to negotiate a lease with him, reasons unclear. So the Devon community is rather baffled about what he actually wants. There has been also offers to buy the premises on 3 occasions. He also had it up in auction, I believe, in 22. We went up to auction in Sydney. Reached a bid of $175,000. Again, he declined to take the offer. So we're baffled. The community is absolutely baffled to what his actual intentions are for these buildings. They've been empty for a long time, and not through the lack of interest in renting. So in closing, we have no understanding that we do object to this development. Is if it does go ahead, having the units right on the main street footpath is not a good environment for either surrounding businesses. It doesn't fit in with the environment. It doesn't fit in with the use of the space, being a public street, and also would lead to difficulties for existing businesses on that side of the street.
Very good.
Being the pharmacy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Now, is it customary to ask for questions? Councillors have any questions? Councillor Beaumont.
Alex, I've noticed that there is an employment agency in one of those buildings as well, or has been. Is that business still exist?
It was shut down during the COVID period, and I believe there may be intentions to reopen it as an employment agency, but as undecided at this time. There was also an opportunity shop at the end building, which existed for quite some time, but in attempts to renegotiate a lease or rent with the owner of the building, again, they couldn't come to a satisfactory agreement, so they removed themselves.
Okay. And a further question. I note from the diagrams that we have that the proposed development is split into two groups of 4 in one singular. Is that because due to the chemist and the employment agency shop?
Probably owned, separately owned by another owner. Yes, that's correct. So you would have, for instance, post office is currently through the current owner. You then have the chemist and the employment centre. They are actually owned by the chemist, so you've got two private separate buildings.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that, you would have further units as it's proposed.
Yeah, so those two shop fronts are privately owned by the occupants?
Yes, there is one shop front that divides the post office and the chemist.
Yeah, yes, and that's part of the development. Yep.
Yes, and that would raise rather concerns for security reasons and other reasons, post office and chemist.
Thank you. Councillor Nichols, you have a question?
Thank you, Alex. Most of those shops have had people in them while I've been on council, and my question is actually to Mr. Carlin, so he can explain what the ramifications to council may be with a refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. If council decide to refuse this proposal, then the applicant has the opportunity to, as a first step, potentially, don't have to, seek a review of determination, which is something they apply for to council. It's done internally. Myself and my planning team do the assessment on their review, and then it gets represented to council based on that. Or alternatively, or on top of that, if council decide not to progress with a determination after that review, then the applicant has the right to go to the Land and Environment Court and seek proceedings.
And the shops are currently, it's an allowable DA that's come in, but the proposal's allowable in that area?
That's correct. So the current land use zone is RU5, which under our LEP land use table is an open land use table, which means it provides for a mix of uses, including residential, shop fronts, whatever it may be. This proposal does fit within the LEP, the land use table, the Dayton strategy, and a whole bunch of other things. But again, the community concern has been presented.
Thank you. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you. Just back to Alex. You would have had access to a lot of Dayton residents coming in, talking to you.
Yeah.
What's the majority of what you're hearing from the people
majority
that
of
you
these
speak to?
residents do want these shop fronts developments to move forward. They're sick of them being empty and stagnant. Again, most of them have family members, etc., that have tried to police, obtain, whatever you like these buildings, have been unable. So whilst they would like to see this very much development pushed forward, they would like to see it done in such a manner that doesn't inhibit the front street, the main street, and fits in with existing buildings and occupiers of these, like I said, pharmacy, post office, that type of shop front. They do believe in the past there has been a set of units to the rear of Fishers that were managed poorly, and the problems they caused within Denton was extreme. If these units do go ahead and are not managed in the correct manner, potential for harm, self-harm, people being harmed, walking on the footpath on the side is huge. I'm not buttercut. This is straight out. If it's not managed in the correct manner, it will be an absolute disaster. And you will have problems. Extreme problems.
Yes, councillor.
Just a follow-up, if I may. In your opinion, are the shops as they have been used in the past being managed well?
Because the property owner is located in Sydney, so the people have rented or managed to get within their shop and virtually self-manage themselves. So, and being business, the last thing you want is to hurt your own business. So you will attempt to run it in a manner which is within community spirit, let's say. So yes, they have been managed well in the past.
But by the shop?
But by
Not by the owner.
that's correct. So it is unsure who would even be the real staff of these premises within this area, or whether it will remain in Sydney, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions? Thanks, Alex. Thank you very much. Now, do we have any further speakers for this public forum?
No speakers as such, Deputy Mayor, but I note that the applicants in the gallery, maybe councillors might like to ask some questions of you.
Certainly. Okay, we have Mr. Matt Jackson in the gallery. Any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Crisp.
Thank you. I'll do some page numbers so councillors can work through this with me. On page 200.
Microphone, please, councillor.
Yep, sorry. On page 222, and this is a clarification question, it talks about a septic system. On page 230, it says it's been converted to sewer, what have we got here?
I'd imagine it's a sewer connection there.
Does that mean we have some septic tanks to remove?
There may be, as part of the planning process. I don't believe that would be considered. I think, Matt, I don't believe the septic would be part of the DA, or removal of septics.
No, removal of septics can be done without any consent from council.
Thank you. I think on page 227, you're looking at that the land is subject within RU5 large lot residential, and there are a number of range of land uses, and one of those, dot point 4, is to ensure there are opportunities for economic development. I'm taking on board what I've heard previously, and I'm wondering if you can offer any explanation as to why the owner, who's had these properties for 20 odd years, has not pursued the opportunities for economic development.
I guess, out of respect to the application I've lodged, I'm here applying for dwellings. In regards to that, I couldn't answer you, sorry.
Thank you. That's all at this time. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Beaumont.
Yeah, Matt, just a question which I think relates to, in my mind anyway, relates to annex-type buildings, we call them duplex-type buildings. With a change in use from commercial to residential, is there any increased fire risk? Do fire risk compliance, does compliance change in relation to fire risk? And if so, has this been considered?
I'm speaking very outside my own comfort level in regards to building requirements, but I'd imagine there would be requirements to change the building because it's changing classification. However, that's not a planning aspect that gets looked at. So as part of the next process, if it was successful in obtaining a DA, they would require a construction certificate to change the classification of the building and do the works. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm speaking outside my comfort level here.
Yeah, okay, all right.
The director is nodding. Any, Councillor Crisp?
I'm interested in, as part of the estimated cost is $302,000. It's in the documentation, that's about $60,000 each. To clear out a shell, rebuild inside, including all the wet areas, fence, carport, landscaping. How does this figure come about? Because at $60,000 each, I think there'd be many people in the Shire would like to know the name of the builder who could bid that price.
Yeah, I guess in response to that, that really doesn't play any weight in regards to whether this should or shouldn't be approved. It's not something that the officers have the ability to look at in regards to the cost of works. So I'm just trying to answer these questions on planning grounds only.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you, Matt. Okay. Invite the Mayor back in.
That concludes the forum. And
That concludes the forum, and we will resume recording and back to the agenda item 9.7.1.
I could just ask councillors, for the purpose of recording, if we just push a microphone button on when we go to speak, please.
So we're gonna. Well, you do that. You've done that.
No, need someone to move back into order we can. Item 7.1.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister's moved, and second Councillor Beaumont to move back into open council. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the next item is item 7.1, my mayoral report. You just note on the bottom there that Councillor McAllister has been reappointed as the local government representative to the Willandra Lakes Region World Heritage Advisory Committee, so congratulations.
Thank you. Is that an opening for me to speak as well? Very briefly.
Yes, okay.
There was a meeting, and I suppose at point 8, that might be where I can talk about that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any questions out of Councillor Nichols? Just turn your mic on, thanks.
Yeah, it's the first time I forgot today. On the 12th of January, I met with Susan Lay, our local member, who is also the deputy leader of the Nats. Could you please tell me what results or what you spoke about? Because she's been fairly prominent of late on federal matters.
She was here more as the member for Farrer, who's our local federal member, and we basically just toured the flood zone, similar to what I did with Helen Dalton and Minister Steph Cook from New South.
A BC meeting. A BC meeting?
Sorry?
A BC meeting prior to elections?
You're going to say that? I think we've had, everyone's been out here, so it's good. Any other questions out of it? Councillor Crisp?
At this point, I'd like to say that there's a whole lot of work that's been done by the Mayor that's not documented here during our flood period, and to acknowledge the work he's done, the places he's visited, the people he's supported. I think it's been an extraordinary effort by our Mayor, and he should be commended for that, including the daily updates from information sources wherever, but the conciseness of them was very useful in a lot of discussions. So thank you, Tim. You've done an amazing job as Mayor during this period.
Pleasure, and as we've said before, it's been a very interesting 3 or 4 months. We're nearly through it, and of course the staff have been the ones that jumped on top of it from day one, and that made everything a bit easier for us. So, but yeah, as we spoke in the briefing, the Darling's nearly through, so hopefully another couple of weeks and we'll be back inside pool levels everywhere and on our way to a big recovery task. So, any other questions? Not all in favour? Carried. Did we have? I moved it. He seconded, Councillor Cooper, I think. Right, item 8, Councillor McAllister, we have nil report, but we might hear about the Willandra Lakes.
I'd like to move that I make a report. Yeah, she's right up the top there. I'd like to move a very brief verbal report arising out of the Willandra Lakes Region World Heritage Advisory Committee meeting that I did attend on the 31st and the 1st of Feb at the Botanic Gardens. Just very briefly, because I'm not actually allowed to say anything because it's ministerially advisory, it has to go up the ladder and get approved before anything comes out. But in effect, the new committee has been tasked with doing a bit of a strategic plan and a work plan. There hasn't been one since 1981 when the World Heritage Area was inscribed. And it was an excellent looking facility with some, committee with some really good, I can't remember his name, doing the consultation. But there have been ads about the consultation. There was a couple of ads in the paper, and the most recent one was that the 3 traditional tribal groups, they're having workshops for community members. There was a date of February 11th that's been postponed. It's now on February the 25th. And that's all from me. If someone could second my report, please.
Open for discussion. Councillor Nichols.
Probably just a comment that it's a shame, it's a little late for the submissions, should be made by the 3rd of February. I mean, it's a little bit slow getting, really, isn't it? It's the 15th today, so we won't be making any, or have we made some outside of council?
Submissions to.
That's all. Sorry.
2238.
Just on top of that, if I may just add that it would have been good to see a copy of the report as well. When we receive the reports and it says there's a link here, unless we receive them electronically, we can't access the link. So I actually would have been really interested in that report. And also, as Councillor Nichols has stated, far too often these circulars appear in an agenda, but we actually don't have an opportunity to make submission, and I'd like to see that prioritised, please.
Yeah, I think what Councillor McAllister said is right, because a printed copy would be very easy for us to get, I suppose, because there's fairly confronting parts in those documents, and they're tightening more and more on council laws, and seem to be more open slather on other areas of government. So it's very, very difficult, and some of those proposals are going to be quite expensive, and the training prior to may cost councils, particularly ones away from Sydney, some considerable funds.
Okay, well, the General Manager can review how we get that information out to councillors.
Yes.
Any other queries or questions out of the General Manager's report? All in favour? Carried. Okay, item 9.2 is the organisational structure. There's a recommendation there. Can I have a mover and second to open it? Councillor Linklater, Councillor Hayward. Open for discussion. Discussion, we did have a discussion in the briefing on it. Any questions? All in favour?
I have a question, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Just as you turned the other way. I'm just wondering if, off the top of your head, you might know what percentage of staffing is Aboriginal identified staffing, please.
I'm going to say 8. I think there was a target set at 5 or 6 and we were above that. I'll confirm that with you, but
Okay, any other questions? All in favour? Carried. 9.3 is the Heritage Advisory Committee, the draft charter. Can we have a recommendation there? Can I have a mover and a second? Councillor Crisp, Councillor McAllister, open for discussion. Councillor McAllister.
Sorry, I got in first. I just want to, if we can have a look at page 77. The number of voting members, I think, might need to be expanded, considering a point that Councillor Nichols made earlier when we were having a bit of a discussion, considering that we have more than one traditional owner group within our shire, and considering that there are the 4 types of heritage that the Office of Heritage Guidelines specified, being Aboriginal, built, movable and natural. 4 members would leave 1 for each of those, and I think that's a little bit of a concern, because if we have an expert in natural heritage and then we have 1 person who's a traditional owner, they're not necessarily going to represent all of the groups that we have within the Shire, nor indeed have the knowledge over east or up north if they come from sort of further west. So I really suggest that we consider extending that, you know, from 6 to 8 at least, or don't even set a number at this stage, depending on what level of interest we receive. The community representatives, page 78, this is the last one, dot point 3, suggests a willingness to commit time and be actively involved in the committee and to perform tasks related to committee business, noting that it's advisory only. The only tasks really will be preparation for meetings. Were there any other tasks that you had in mind for that? No. Yeah. So just something around the language, that's all that I've got for that. Thank you.
As the report said, this was tailored based on larger councils, Blue Mountains and others, so the numbers, we'll take your point of view and just leave it open-ended, that the numbers were scaled down from a larger council to more our size, but no, leave it open-ended.
The argument could well be, sorry, through you, Mayor, just in response, that having not done work since 92, I think, or 94, whenever it was,
89, yeah.
there's actually quite a quantum of work to be done, and also the size of our shire would suggest that there's potential for way more heritage than even the Blue Mountains Council might have. If they've been doing it for longer and they've got more people in terms of population, it may be that they actually know where their heritage is and have access to greater resources where we don't. So I would suggest the argument would be in the opposite.
Councillor Beaumont.
Okay. I'd like to see some discussion around the draft charter and whether we should be broadening the title to include history. The draft briefly mentions history within the purpose, but it's lacking within the objectives. I believe heritage and history are closely linked, and we have a very rich history, Indigenous and European history in this area, paddle steamer history and so on. So I'd like to see some discussion on whether we should be broadening that title and perhaps the charter a little bit.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Nichols.
I would have to agree with Councillor McAllister, because I had restrictive and 8 with a heap of question marks. I believe we can't restrict it down to too short a number. The other thing is, if you want another representative, I'm prepared to put my hand up, because I also applied for Willandra Lakes. I haven't yet been notified it was unsuccessful. However, congratulations to Councillor McAllister. So.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just comment, I think we've got one councillor with an alternate councillor to be selected. Is there a view on more councillor involvement? It is a council committee.
Yes, it does say councillors too.
And, sorry, question?
Well, my question was, or am I reading that wrong? It says Councillor McAllister with an alternate councillor.
So did we've already made that decision, have we, about Councillor McAllister, or that's just a drafting?
That's what the report said.
During the annual meeting of selection of committees, although this wasn't nominated, was forecast to be nominated, and Councillor McAllister put a hand up for the job.
Councillor McAllister wasn't here. This didn't go on straight away, did it?
No. This was September of last year when I brought it up.
This was
And
added.
nobody else put their hand up as having any interest in it.
I haven't heard any comment in relation to my suggestion. However, I would perhaps like to move an amendment to the motion, if that's the correct terminology, and move that the title of this policy be expanded to Wentworth Shire Council Heritage and History Advisory Committee, and the list of objectives be expanded to include reference to both Indigenous and European influenced history.
Okay, that's an amendment. Have we got a seconder for that? Councillor Nichols. Any discussion around it? Those for it? Unanimous. So the amendment becomes the motion. We'll vote on that again. Those for? It's unanimous. So in terms of the charter, what would you like to see, Councillor Beaumont? You'd like to... Just turn your microphone on if you would. Thank you.
As suggested in the motion, Wentworth Shire Council Heritage and Advisory Committee become the title, and the
History.
Wentworth Shire Council Heritage and History Advisory Committee become the title, and the list of objectives be expanded to include reference to Indigenous and European history.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's carried.
If I may, Mr Mayor, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Rodder. Yes?
I know I'm quiet in the back tonight. So just in regards to the councillors too, Councillor McAllister with an alternate councillor to be selected, I think that a committee of that type warrants minimum 2 councillors plus an alternate.
That was the intention of the wording, actually. It was 2 councillors, one being Councillor McAllister and another councillor, plus an alternate to be nominated.
Yeah, okay. That's basically how it's supposed to read, Councillor Rodder. Can we get blown up a bit? So she just got to yell. All right. So that is all done. 9.4 is the motions for the 23 National General Assembly of Local Government. So recommendation there. Can I have a mover and a seconder to open the discussion, please? Councillor Linklater, second to Councillor Hayward. Open for discussion. No. Councillor McAllister.
In the past, this council has been quite successful, in my knowledge, at the Australian Local Government Association conferences. In my recollection, there was a record 6 or 7 motions that were carried that this council had produced. I think that was in 2018, 17 or 18. And this is actually an opportunity to not only for new councillors who haven't attended, not only to get relevant motions put before a forum, but also to witness excellent meeting procedure and debate procedure, and also the obvious networking that is available, seeing councils not just at state level but from right across the country, and discussing issues with, for myself, other regional, rural and some isolated communities that that kind of understand where when we sometimes find ourselves at state level, we're up with a whole bunch of city people who don't quite get it. So this also, I think, is a really good opportunity for the third tier of government to connect directly with the first tier of government, and there will no doubt be some new speakers talking about the national agenda in terms of what the new government has planned. So it's always really informative in terms of getting a good heads up for what funding might be coming our way, what operational matters might be relevant to us, and give us some ideas in terms of setting direction into the future as well. So I would certainly recommend that council sends somebody along, and particularly I'd encourage new councillors to get along to it, because I think it's really worth going to. And I think it does bring benefit to this community as well by being seen, and being seen to be an active, engaged council in the national forum. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comment? I can't really see you, councillor Rodder, so just yell if you want to chip in.
I'm just wondering, in regards to the formation of motions, is that something that council will discuss at the next advisory meeting?
It could be. And has anything they particularly want brought up that you think the ALGA could assist us with?
Process-wise, if I may, the motions need to go before council to be approved before they can be submitted, so that the motions would have to be drafted and approved at next council meeting. That's my understanding.
So is there no advisory meeting next week?
Yeah, but it's not a voting meeting, so, but
but
you can still discuss the proposed
Yeah,
motions and get your head around them, and then put them to the March council meeting, which is up before the 24th.
Being that I've not been involved in that process before, I think it would be advantageous for new councillors to have the ability to be able to discuss the types of motions that that might be suitable for that forum, and then with the view to put it up at the next council meeting in time to be lodged.
Yeah, well, that can certainly be done. Any other discussion around that? Are you happy to sit to the advisory committee meeting next week? And I'll sit there. Okay, all in favour then? Carried. 9.5 is the Pooncarie Desert Dash request for sponsorship. There's a recommendation there. Can I have a mover and a second to throw it open? Councillor Beaumont, Councillor Cooper, open for discussion. Councillor Linklater.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to speak in support of this request. Should should the event proceed in any case. I think the economic stimulus would be as good or similar to other events held of that nature. I think bringing in support crews and spectators and competitors from, I think, almost every state in the country is fantastic exposure, particularly with the country looking as good as it is at the moment, and also the television audience. So I am speaking in support of this request.
There's three options there.
I'm speaking in support of the $20,000 request.
Yes, I move.
Councillor Beaumont.
I would endorse Councillor Linklater's comments. I think the economic boost to a small community within our shire would be invaluable. There are certainly accommodation enterprises up that way that would benefit, I'm sure. There could be some small income in camping fees to the shire, and it also gives the shire the opportunity to, I guess, promote what else there is to see and do in our shire via the our visitors guide and our visitor information staff. So I would support this $20,000 application as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor McAllister.
Just a question really, and I don't know if anybody here does know. Is the Sunraysia Motorsports the same people as Sunraysia Safari Rally? And can we expect another rally in September in that case? Or is this taken over?
They're definitely different organisations, Councillor McAllister.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right, there's a recommendation there to support option A. Those in favour? Carried.
As we can't see Councillor Rodder, would you not ask what her vote is, please, on these things? Because we're flying through a meeting with a councillor, we can't see what she's doing.
Excellent point.
And she needs to be able to have her point put forward.
So your vote was for, Councillor Rodder?
No, my vote was against.
Against, okay. We'll
Yes,
record
please.
that.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols.
Okay, item 9.6 is the monthly finance report. Recommendation there. Receive a note, move Councillor McAllister, seconded Councillor Hayward. Any questions? That is the December finance report. Councillor Nichols.
Hello. 109, page 109, under water and waste management, where we've had 97 hours, most of that probably, and 169 hours, $17,000 of overtime. Do we have any ability to get any of this back due to flood finances? Well, it's an expense that comes out of finances, so as there's $17,000 there, is any of that recompense to council? Because I would assume all that money that was spent is due to floods.
I'd have to take that one on notice as to where they've spent that money. If there is some of it is flood related, then we will be seeking recompense for that.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, if I could just point out through you to Councillor Nichols that actually the total for that was over 50,000.
Yeah, well, it was, you're right, sorry, yes. No, flood management was 50,000, and then when you come down to water and wastewater.
You've got to read it across, councillor, that it's 17,000 time and a half and 32,000 in double time, totaling 50,000. Okay, any other questions out of that? All in favour? Carried. Okay, next one is the monthly finance report, 9.7 for January 23. Moved councillor Nichols, seconded councillor Cooper. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. 9.8 is the monthly investment report for December. A move and a seconder, please. Councillor Linklater, councillor McAllister. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. This one over. You can tag it, go. 9.9 is the January monthly investment report. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Cruz, second councillor McAllister. Any discussion? Councillor McAllister.
Sorry, page 124. The EDS grant, which EDS is that for?
Wentworth.
Wentworth, thank you. I was hoping you'd say that.
Okay, any other questions? All in favour? Carried. 9.10 is the local government elections. There's a recommendation there. Move councillor Cooper, second councillor Nichols. Any questions? I just made a note there. At one stage, 2 or 3 years ago, we were talking about postal votes.
That'll be a separate
Issue.
resolution or a separate issue. We have to, I suppose, we have to appoint the Electoral Commission first, and then they will ask questions around postal votes and electronic voting and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was 18 months, and we just missed it, and then it's September 24, isn't it? So 18 months is,
yes, I'm going to ask the same question
that's
because
March, isn't it?
perhaps we need to say now that we want them to do it, and we also want postal votes to go in the same recommendation
Is,
as a separate piece of it. To be allowed to do postal voting, I should say. Yeah. If you put another B on it or something, just go to recommendation with a B that the council
what have
asks.
we got till March, February now. All right, well, that was, I'll just add that was a view of the former council, I might add. You want to discuss postal voting?
And that would be, councillor Nichols, is that an alternative to attendance voting? Is that is an option in the New South Wales electoral system?
Yes.
Yeah, the former council asked for that privilege, and we missed out by about a month or thereabouts. There's an 18-month lead time into the election for which you have to have a resolution of council to indicate that you'd like to progress that.
I think there's been through you, Mr. Mayor, discussion within this council about the possibility of having postal vote, and my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, please, is that it is actually cheaper, much cheaper.
I would imagine that it would be significantly cheaper because you're not paying for electoral staff.
Yep.
Depends whether they do full postal voting or they do a mixture of postal voting and in-person voting. If they're doing in-person voting, then they still would have to have
Staff.
at least one polling booth, maybe even multiple polling booths. But it would significantly potentially reduce the cost of what we had to pay if there was a significant uptake in people registering or requesting postal votes.
My recollection was that the election cost something like 124,000. Does that sound right, Simon?
The last election cost us about 75,000, give or take. The countback election cost us about 6, and we've had some indicative costings already for the next election, and it's sitting at about 90. 90.
Yeah. Councillor Crisp.
I would like to see a report on the pros and cons of the the systems or proposals. I would not favour making that decision here tonight. I'd like to have some more information in front of me so as that we can make an informed decision rather than something tonight that I think most councillors have probably not given a lot of thought to.
Okay.
Have we got time to wait?
Mr Mayor, if councillor Nichols has
Moved an amendment.
I'm happy to second her amendment.
Okay, could
By,
you,
was it adding the words by postal vote at the end of that?
could you just turn your mic on, please?
And look into the ability of council going for a full postal vote for our shire. I mean, basically looking at it's got to be in by the 13th of next month, which is actually prior to the council meeting, so...
It means you've got to make a decision now, which is probably a bit harsh on you, councillors. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Councillor
So
Beaumont.
for clarification, is Councillor Nichols suggesting there be no polling booth attendance?
That's exactly what I'm requesting. There'd be no polling booths, so that if all votes be postal votes, and they do that in other places, and it works extremely successfully, and as put forward by the finance manager, director, the cost would be significantly less than what we're currently paying.
I'd just like to point out, if I may, Mr Mayor, through you, that Mildura Rural City Council employs a complete postal vote system for their council elections.
Yeah, okay,
question?
thank you. Councillor Linklater.
Yeah, I'm not sure the finance director confirmed anything. I think the director suggested it might be cheaper or it should be cheaper. Could we get some clarification around that before we make a decision?
I'd have to go back to the Electoral Commission and talk to them about that.
I mean, what we look at, how many people we have on our rolls, and that's the amount of people that are entitled to vote. So we don't have 70,000 people on our rolls. We have probably over 7,000, haven't we? 7,000 properties.
It's about
Three and a half
It's about
thousand.
4,500
4,500,
or something.
well,
Four,
I mean,
two, something like that.
it's-
Councillor Cooper, did you have something? No. Okay, Councillor Crisp.
Perhaps to Councillor Rodder, as I recall with Mildura, the people still vote on a piece of paper, and then on the day, each one of those ballot papers is manually entered into the computer system. So you have a large number of people sitting there doing data entry. Has that changed yet, or for scanning technology? Because there's considerable cost in having a room full of people doing data entry.
So irrespective...
Just a point of
whether-
order, if I may, Mr Crisp needs to put his questions through the chair.
If I may, through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Crisp. So irrespective of whether there's a postal vote where people write on a ballot paper or whether people attend in person, it's the same process at the other end. Where the cost saving is to council is that you haven't got electoral office staff manning polling booths.
Okay, Councillor Beaumont.
Personally, I would like to know a lot more about the process of postal voting and how it works and the costs involved in relation to that process to be able to make an informed decision on which way to go on something like this. I think, personally, I don't think I have the information to be able to make a decision on something like this at this point.
Councillor Crisp?
Perhaps through you to Director of Finance, I-voting appeared for the first time, I think, in local government elections. Do we have any indication from the Electoral Commission about how that went and what their plans are for I-voting into the future?
I'm not sure what their plans are for I-voting last time, into the future, but I know that there was at least one result of one election that had to be actually overturned by the Supreme Court because there was a significant amount of crashes, for the want of a better word, with people being able to access the system on the day. And the Electoral Commission wasn't able to adequately determine that everyone was given an equal opportunity to vote. So therefore, the only option they had was to apply to the Supreme Court to have the result of that particular election deemed null and void. And they now are bearing the cost of, or they then bore the cost of running a completely new election for that particular area. Yes, so I haven't heard anything since then as to whether there's still an appetite for I-voting. I suspect there probably is, but what level of research and development they have to do to improve the platform and improve accessibility, considering locations like us where there are challenges in parts for internet connectivity. I suspect it's something that they potentially would not mandate fully for a while. They would offer it for those people who would want to do it, but it may end up, if they were to move in another direction, it may end up being a mixture of postal voting and I-voting, but all we can do is, I suppose, ask the question and see what response we get back from the Electoral Commission as to what they're thinking, where their plans are. At this stage, I haven't seen anything from them in the last couple of months as to what their plans are. They've been busy sort of sorting out which councils will be grouped with which councils and where returning officers are going to be, and then making sure the councils get these resolutions done in time to ensure that they then have the authority to run the election for council. Once that's all done, then they'll start moving on to, I suspect once the state election is over in a couple of months, they'll then start looking at our elections in more detail.
Councillor, go, Councillor Rodditt.
iVote is not available through the New South Wales system for the 2023 New South Wales state election.
Okay, thank you. So you would expect that may well flow into local government elections the year after, unless they've ironed all the problems out. Councillor Linklater.
Oh, thank you. So personally, I'd be most disappointed to miss the thrill of engaging in voting at the polling booth. But I wouldn't expect council to subject themselves to higher costs on behalf of my thrills. But given that we're only speculating that it's cheaper, I couldn't support this amendment until we have some evidence of that, and particularly given that that's the only reason presented tonight as to why we would go to postal voting. I haven't heard any arguments about the community desiring to go to a postal voting system or the convenience or any other issue. So that's my position. I wouldn't support this without further information.
Mr Mayor, I'll just point out that we did get that information previous council. I do remember seeing it. I can't remember the numbers, but I'm sure that work has been done previously. We've had this discussion on about 3 or 4 occasions.
Prior to the last election, I did do numbers about the cost of getting an external provider to do it versus the Electoral Commission doing it. I haven't seen personally any figures around postal voting. Someone else may have seen those, but they haven't come across my desk
Yeah, I definitely recall the debate as the finance director just put it against the Electoral Commission or an independent party. But I do know the previous council were keen on the postal vote idea, whether it was cost or not, I can't really comment. Councillor Hayward?
Yeah, Mildura have been postal voting for a few years now. I just heard where a person had, the father was a bit sick on the day, or whatever, and was able to take the voting form to him and still be part of what was going on. And we've got a lot of people around that don't make it to the polling booth or whatever. You're still doing postal vote, but and there's people out the bush now. We don't have Pernkerias voting. There's a lot for it, I believe.
Yeah, in memory, a lot of the argument did come from the Pooncarie community, especially around harvest time.
But they can do a pre-poll. And you can apply to do a postal, I think. But anyway, all right, we've got an amendment to the motion, which is the motion as it is, and the part B that council approve a request to the Electoral Commission for full postal voting. That was moved Councillor Nichols, seconded Councillor McAllister. Those for the motion? 1, 2, 3. Those against? Sorry, Councillor Rodder, are you for?
For. I'm for.
Thank you. So can I have it again? Councillor Rodder, 3, 4. Those against? Is for, and I'm going to vote against just purely on the basis that I think the new councillors deserve the opportunity to have it investigated.
We'll still need a resolution on Part A though. That motion fails, we need to go back to
So the
the
motion
original.
lapses, so can we have a mover and a seconder for the original recommendation? Councillor Crisp, Councillor Beaumont. Those in favour? It's carried. Those against? Motion's carried. 9.11 is the request for financial assistance. We had Councillor Nichols is out the door. Yeah, well, we can probably address those ones. Well, so yours is the bowling club, obviously, and so we'll just go through them. There's only a handful there. So, okay, the Pioneer Committee, Homes Committee, a reduction in rates, which is done annually. Any discussion against it? No. The Keamialla Wentworth Cricket Club for a contribution towards the cost of the curator at the McLeod Oval at Wentworth. Councillor McAllister.
I seem to remember that using financial assistance to pay people was not within the scope of what the financial assistance was for. Regardless of whether it's a reimbursement or not, effectively what this is doing is paying somebody's wage. Can I get clarification on that, please?
Simon.
That would be my that would be my opinion of what the
So what you're saying is under the policy, it shouldn't be in it.
well, it's still up to, we still have to put it up to you guys, and then
Yeah.
we don't have authority to determine these applications.
All right, but basically we can't deal with it because unless there's other discussion, who would like to support it?
Well, I suppose that being the case, the other issue that I have with this one is that I note the submission mentioned the fact that it is a council asset, and yet we pay people on staff to take care of council assets, and yet here we have a group that have gone and no matter how expertly a person may be a curator, we do have people on staff, is the fact of the matter, that can do that. So in my mind, this is a glaring sort of a wicked problem for council, and therefore I can't support this one.
It's probably, history would say, a wicked problem. History would say it's one of the best prepared turf wickets in the country. Has been for a long time. Years ago, the Victorian Sheffield Shield team used to use Wentworth as its summer, pre-season camp. They've done an excellent job with that turf wicket down there.
If I may,
family curator.
Chair.
Yes, Councillor Rodder.
Just in relation to Councillor McAllister's comments, yes, we do have some very talented staff in the employ of the Wentworth Shire Council. However, a person who curates a cricket wicket is not on staff at council, as far as I'm aware, and it is quite a specific task.
Yes, correct. And I guess the other consideration with it is well, who on council would do it, and it's another job to do, isn't it? Councillor Hayward?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, as you're saying, the McLeod Oval, I was involved with the veterans cricket, came to Mildura a couple of years ago before the COVID, and the three grounds that were the best in Sunraysia was Wentworth, Derton and Altrincham. So it was a feather in the cap of Wentworth that there was great curators, and they put a lot of time and effort in.
Yeah, Councillor Beaumont?
Yeah, look, I don't think anyone would doubt the quality of the preparation and the work that's done on any of these grounds, but I think it comes back to whether this request actually qualifies in terms of the policy. To me, that's the question. Does it
Well, I think the finance director's answered that question.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I am right. I'm just reading the policy as we...
Okay. All right, well, perhaps we put that one aside. The Wentworth Military Collection Incorporated, looking for a grant. Yes, because Councillor Beaumont has an interest in that. Request for a grant to purchase the public address system and lectern. Any comment? Councillor Beaumont?
Look, I note that, I'll state first up the Wentworth Military Collection is a very worthwhile voluntary enterprise within the community, and they do a fantastic job. They have already received, in the 21-22 financial year, $5,000 and are requesting $3,886. Yeah, look, I'm just not sure whether we should be, given the state of the budget that's been allocated for financial assistance, whether with some of these groups that have already received significant funding, whether a percentage be applied to these requests.
I was going to take up the opposite and just mention that they got an excellent rap in this magazine, which I don't know if anybody's seen. And also, if you've managed to experience the audio-visual display and the numbers of stories that are collected there, Councillor Beaumont, you were speaking about the history of the region, and just to go in there and hear transmitted some of the stories of local veterans who fought in the wars, their connection to the region. It just humanises and makes very real the experience, and, you know, for school kids, for people who come here specifically for, you know, veterans retreats, etc. These guys do a whole bunch of work that nobody gets paid for, and they do it out of the love of their hearts. And I wouldn't begrudge them more money, because they're now out of COVID and wanting to engage more people, and they can do that better if they've got excellent sound. An audio system, I think, is definitely needed.
I don't disagree with it, but they want a public address system and a lectern. Would that be used internally in the building?
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, wherever they're hosting things, because they don't, it's not a static
specific.
there, but something mobile, I think, is what they're wanting it for.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going on a new venture by going to schools. So this public address system could be involved with that, where I've been through that, and I think every councillor should go through it and see what you get. I thought I could go through it 10 times for the amount of stuff that's there.
Cool, you told me you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
All righty, thank you. That answered my question. Any other discussion on that one? Okay, the Blind Bowlers Association, which are having a big carnival at Keamiella in April. On the new Keamiella Green set up. It looks magnificent out there. The job the club's done on it should be fully complimented. It looks fantastic. I think it draws a pretty big crowd from all over.
Oh, fantastic. This, through you, Mr Mayor, this is something that's going to set precedent with, I've never heard of this blind bowling before, and it'll be great for the community, I think.
Okay, thank you. All righty, so we will, Simon, have you got an update before the two councillors move?
I have got an update. So reading the policy doesn't actually specifically state that we can't do that, but it has been the practice previously where we have sort of frowned on where there's been a request for reimbursement of wages, it hasn't been supported. And one of those ones was actually in relation to the Military Museum. There was an application put in a number of years ago, and the question was asked whether he actually drew a profit or made a profit out of the venture. And when it was clarified that no, it was a purely non-for-profit business, then the application was supported. So it doesn't come up very, very rarely, but the policy doesn't specifically prohibit it, but it has been practice previously to not favour those types of applications.
Okay, so it's not in breach of the policy, I guess. That's a decision the councillors can make. I would have thought for that amount of money for 6 months of the year to prepare a wicket the way they do, that is pretty minimal. If council had someone, it'd be a lot more. All right, so I'll ask councillors Beaumont and... all right, so...
That's the increase of the
Grant.
budget.
Yes, okay.
We actually haven't had a mover or seconder, I think, from memory, have we?
Councillor Crisp and Councillor Linklater are the mover and the seconder. They're open for the discussion, which we've had. So, the options are grant the full value of all requests, which would require additional money to be allocated over and above the 160,000 allocated for the 22-23 financial year, or consider partially funding. Councillor Crisp, you are the mover.
I just speak briefly to the motion that in the time when a lot of our community organisations are rebuilding after COVID, I think it's appropriate for us to extend this as part of the recovery and getting our communities moving and involved again.
Okay, fair call.
So the question is $30,000 sufficient to get through to the 30th of June? Could it be slightly more? I've based it on a rough estimate that if all these approved, as I said, there'll be a shortfall of about $7,000. So if we take it up by 30, that'll give us roughly $23,000 left for the next rounds. Most of the rounds this year have been in that sort of 15 to 17,000 mark. So at this stage, unless something abnormal comes out, and this round was shorter than the smaller applicants in the previous rounds. The first two actually had quite a number. So unless something abnormal comes out of the blue in the next round, at this stage I'm comfortable where that figure sits. However, should we get more applications in the next round and what money is available, then we can have the discussion again about whether we partially approve some of them, not approve them, approve all of them, in which case we'd need an additional budget variation at that particular point in time. For a higher amount now, just have to alleviate having to revisit that, another variation.
It just disappears back into consolidated revenue if that happens, so you're better off to have to apply again for another amount, really.
Okay, Councillor Linklater.
I think, through you to Councillor Beaumont, I think we wouldn't know until we receive more applications. So I guess we're taking a punt on the level of increase.
I guess my question is, if you make the variation higher, say 40,000, round it out to a total budget of 200 for the year, you may alleviate that necessity to come back and revisit it again. That's all.
Do you want to comment on that?
I'm happy either way. I'm happy with the $30,000. If council sees fit to grant an extra $10,000, then that's okay with me as well. So
do you want to amend it?
if it doesn't make any significant difference, let's leave it alone.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, now you can go. Councillor Nichols, you'll have...
You've got to vote on the one.
Oh,
Brian.
Brian, hang on, sorry. I'll jump the gun. So we're going to vote on those 1, 2, 3, 4 that we've just discussed. And the recommendation. So those in favour. So that is carried. For the budget variation and those Pioneer Homes to receive their rate reduction, Kemealla Cricket Club to receive a reimbursement, the Military Collection to receive funding for public address system and a lectern, and the Australian Blind Bowlers Association grant for their tournament at Kemealla. All right, Councillor Nichols, you want to say something about... Oh, we'll have to get... Okay. You'll have to go, Councillor Beaumont. He's had a few goes, but he got there. My fault. Councillor Nichols.
All right, I'll speak without it. quite frankly, that this has had to come to council is a disgrace. When council builds buildings, council-owned buildings, they should have all this equipment in them. The same thing happened when Midway was done, except it was done properly, because the comment was made 20 years ago that they needed to have a commercial kitchen with everything in it that was necessary. Now, $534 isn't very much, but the racing club certainly shouldn't have had to put forward for request for that sort of a grant. It should come straight up council's finances without them having to request a
Okay. Point taken, then. Hard to disagree with. All right, you may leave too.
Can I just add to Councillor Nichols' comments? From memory, this was the most expensive dishwasher in the world, and the fact that they haven't been able to pin down the quotation is a little bit shocking, because to go back and all of a sudden get done for another $400 or whatever dollars, I think is outrageous, and perhaps someone should have stepped in and said, you've got a quote, can't you adhere to the quote and fix it? I don't know if that's council's job, but we've already, there was a lot of discussion around this most expensive dishwasher in the world.
True. Yeah, I think you both make very good points about it. All right. Any discussion around both those, the Bowls Club and the Race Club? I definitely remember the most expensive dishwasher in the world conversation. So. Anyway, any other comments? Okay, those in favour?
I need another movement.
Hey?
I need another movement.
Oh, we need to move Councillor Linklater, second to Councillor McAllister. For those two. Right, we're all in favour? Carried. Right. Joe? Sorry, Councillor Rodder?
Yes?
You for those? Sorry, I can't see you.
Oh, that's weird, because it looks
No,
like
it's not you.
on the...
No, it's not your fault. You're just in a little tiny square corner of the telly here.
Right, okay. I can understand why you might want to put me there, but that was a yes for me.
Right, we'll return those councillors to the meeting. Okay. All right, moving on, 9.12 is December quarterly budget review for the second quarter of 22-23. There's a recommendation there. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Cooper, second Councillor Crisp. Open for discussion. Questions?
Just a point of order, to let the councillors know the outcome when they return, if you wouldn't mind.
Should we do that now?
No harm in advising.
Okay. Both approved councillors, your race club and your bowling club. All right. We've got a mover and a seconder on that one, didn't I just say? Yep. All right, any discussion? Those in favour? Carried. A yes from you, Councillor Rodder?
It is, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. 9.13, the quarterly operational plan report, progress report. Recommendation there again. Can we move it, please? Councillor Linklater, Councillor Beaumont. Any discussion? Councillor Nichols. No, microphone, I think he was saying.
I can hear that too. The 19 stalled actions, what is the likely delayed time factor for those 19 items? We've used flood as flooding, as directly or indirectly, so have we come to any decision on how long extra they're going to take? I know some may take longer time, but hopefully some of the other things might be finished a little quicker.
I'll have to defer to Jeff on some of those ones, Councillor Nichols, but as the General Manager referenced earlier on with the project that we discussed earlier on, it depends on how long it takes the ground to dry out and equipment to be able to get on site to finish or even start construction on some of those projects. So it could be 4 weeks, it could be 6 weeks. It's just very, very dependent on how quickly it dries out and how much work's involved on the site.
That's a fair comment. However, earlier in the thing it did say that 5 actions, operational staff identified 5 actions where it is recommended that actions be deferred due to the need to reprioritise. So now the floods are no longer there.
Yep.
Those 5 actions surely could come back into...
Most of those, I suspect, will be deferred till next financial year, only because now the floods have gone, there's then recovery operations that have got to be done. So staff have been moved off flood preparation stuff and are now busy doing flood recovery stuff. So when we were looking at these projects, these were the ones that we deemed to be, I suppose, the less significant projects and had the capacity to be deferred to a later time, mainly because they hadn't started construction, whereas some of the other ones had already started construction before the floods came through. So therefore, there'll be an endeavour to get back to them as quickly as possible.
What I was going to say, to go on with that, I noticed that the deficits that we seem to be having, the organisational funds are being used, but the funds that are lacking are those that are actually lacking in works being done.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand what you're actually trying to...
Any further, Councillor Nichols? Anything further? Any other questions out of that? Councillor McAllister.
Do we have a roads person? Liaison, road safety officer, thank you.
Not at the moment, and I think Jeff can probably fill us in on where he's up to on there.
Yeah, discussing with Transport today with regards to sourcing road safety officer. That discussion continuing through to tomorrow with a view to presenting a updated position description. It's being a shared role between Transport and Council to hopefully go out in the very near future with regards to that position.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All in favour? Carried. (9.14) is disposal of a riverfront parcel of land to fix the seal for the sale of the land. There's a recommendation there. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Crisp and Councillor Cooper. Any discussion? McAllister.
Just a really stupid one, probably. Can you explain to me exactly where this is? Because I'm having trouble working it out in relation to the things around it.
Better than me.
I'll try and explain it. So Right-hand, Riverside, Trentham, before the Trentham truck stop, back this way, there's a white house next to a vacant block of land, so vacant block of land, sorry, house, vacant block of land, the house I'm talking about, white sort of archway house, then a roadside stall with oranges and things, so.
Councillor Beaumont, do you have a question?
Yeah, look, I'm not sure whether I'm missing something here, but I have a number of questions, I guess, or queries in relation to this. There appears to be some anomalies in the agenda item. One being that at one point we're referring to one adjoining neighbour, and then when you go through and look at some of the documentation, it refers to 3 lots and 2 adjoining neighbours. So I'd like clarification on that. I've through good old Google Maps and whatnot, I've been able to find this place myself, and whilst it appears to be, I guess, landlocked on one side and locked by the river on the other, it's still a significant portion of land, being over 1,000 square metres, and I would argue has a greater value than that identified in the documentation here.
It's part of the riverfront parcel project, which has been going on for years. And did council make the call on that figure, or was it the last previous council? So they came back to a average across the board because, you know, some of them had exorbitant amounts of land through an easement, for argument's sake, which would have cost them $150,000. So I think from the 77, I reckon, parcels there was, the figure came back to about $5,000 or $6,000 a block, and that was the call made. So
I'd argue that land, even though it be, I guess, you know, locked in a sense, as this is, still has a value. It is accessible by river. To me, it appears to have 2 adjoining neighbours, not one, and therefore there could be a contest as to ownership if it was put up for public tender.
yeah, I'll handle that to Matthew, but
I would assume that, you know, that the Shire must have perceived some economic benefit in disposing of this land.
well, there's 77 of them across the Shire, and it's all the riverfront parcels that were under a 93 LEP that they decided should be open public space. But the problem for council is you get lumbered with the liability on them. So the council made the decision to return those parcels, and whether it's that size parcel, whether it's, you know, I know there's a couple up at home, they're 20 metre frontages by 20 wide or whatever, and the average pricing system seemed to be a fairer way to do it across the board, rather than it stinging some people a heap, and some people, in that case, would have been less than what it is now, I'd imagine.
So what's the justification in offering this parcel of land to one prospective purchaser?
Well, it was the adjoining, I'm assuming it's the adjoining landholder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this whole project was only offered to adjoining landholders, whether they be single adjoining landholders or multiples. In this particular case, before my time when the LEP amendment and all the studies were done prior, there was only one adjoining landholder identified and gazetted into the planning proposal amendment that was put into the schedule of our LEP. So what happened is that you actually have a parcel of land that's not being offered to that person, that has actually got 2 lots on it owned by one person. So that little bit of land close to the riverfront is actually not a riverfront parcel that council owns. It's freeholded by the same owner. Because of that reason, both council and the Department of Planning and the minister at the time said that's not an adjoining landholder, and therefore the only person who is eligible to receive an adjoining riverfront parcel would be that single landholder that was identified, which is who's being offered in this current documentation. So this was all put into the LEP amendment. It was gazetted into the LEP and all those sorts of things.
So, okay, so you're saying that the other adjoining landowner is excluded from consideration because their land doesn't have river frontage?
Yes, correct. That's what we're
Right.
saying. Yeah.
Seems strange logic to me. I would still suggest that that parcel of land will, because it will add significant value to the proposed purchaser, must have a more significant value than $1.
Yeah, I think there was half an explanation in the briefing that they pay all the costs surveying-wise and everything, and it worked out as an average of about somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000.
Exactly.
For everyone.
And the other part of it too is that the other reason why we were disposing of these riverfront parcels is because council doesn't have access to them to maintain them or keep them. So the cost of us to give people notice of entry and bring our plant and equipment down there to all these, spread out riverfront parcels all across the Shire, all the way up to Pooncarry, all the way down to Trentham Cliffs, is just not feasible for council, to be honest. And this is why we've offered it at a cost that's going to be the resolution of council was to be cost zero, a neutral cost to council, essentially, regardless of any value add it might give to individual or consolidated landholders. It was always the intention of council, and the resolution was cost neutral to council.
Councillor McAllister.
Is this the last one? Because I know there is still more.
This is the beginning.
This is the beginning. 76 to go.
We've done a few where there are straight up single adjoining landholders. We've been able to just go straight into a consolidation, which doesn't require DAs and approvals and things like that. But in saying that, you are still going to have to go through this sale process with all of them. Yep.
So I guess just for clarification through you, Mayor, because there's been so much consultation going on for many years about this, I had assumed that this was now the last one that we've come to.
Yeah, no.
But no, now I understand this is actually
Still,
putting the seal on and
bureaucratic
saying...
process continues.
Done. Right, okay, thank you.
There's a few to go. Okay. Any, Councillor Nichols?
Just a question to Mr. Garland, if I can. You say this is the first. Are those still on Pooncarry Road? Are they part of the 77? Were they? That go back some years?
Which part of Pooncarry Road, sorry, Councillor Nichols?
Next to the 1 acre allotments, where the original 1 acre allotments near the bridge.
Near the bridge. I'd have to look into that for you.
There's one where we went in to have a look. Well, I can say the pieces of land there. The one where we went in to look at the shed for people putting items into sheds. There's one there that's got a business on it. There's a group of flats there. There's a whole heap of them along that part of the road.
There's actually a whole heap in that.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's about a whole heap. So I just wondered, are they part of the 77? I thought as a group you may know off the top of your head.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at our files and come back to you on that. Yep.
There were 77 across the district. Councillor Beaumont.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. To Director of Health and Planning, is this the only option available to us in terms of disposing of this this land? Considering that we are apparently at the start of a process, would it be wise to reconsider the disposal process and perhaps think about a public tender process where you might get a more a better value or more realistic value, purchase value for these said lots?
Good question. I'll answer that in 2 parts, if I may. So the first part of your question is, I don't think it's a good idea at this time because this actually has ministerial consent it was gazetted into our LEP. The land was reclassified to operational land so we could do this. So to do anything like that, we'd have to go back through the ministerial planning process and everything else. The other part of it is, sorry, just repeat the question again. Sorry, Councillor Beaumont.
I'm wondering whether to go to an open tender process might achieve a more realistic sale price and have the benefit of a financial return to the council.
Okay, so I guess the other part, that's right. So I guess we sort of might have had a misleading comment when we said this is the beginning. What I meant by that was this is the beginning of the finalisation of these disposal of riverfront. So since 2015, since the LEP amendments and all the consultation, the ministerial gazettals into the LEP and all the bits and pieces we've been doing for the last 8 years or so, we're now coming to the end of the project by actually getting these riverfront parcels disposed and consolidated into these adjoining landholders. So to do what you're suggesting, we would be undoing 8 years' worth of work, if not more.
Just by way of clarity, these were Crown land parcels that council was looking after.
Correct. And we went through the process of reclassifying them to operational land so we could do this.
My memory serves me correct, it came about something to do with people having access to land opposite the river, coming off the river, that was more or less going to be public land.
Well, yeah, well, it was
That's
deemed
right.
to be public land
Yeah,
under the
that's right.
93 LEP from
That's right.
recollection. And the problem for council is, one, you couldn't access it or maintain it, and you had the liability. So the decision to, this was made many, many years ago to go down this path. So I don't think it'd be a real good idea to be turning it over now. Councillor Beaumont.
So just a point of clarification, is it Crown land or land owned by council, which to me infers freehold land owned by council?
It's freehold land.
The reason, if I may, the reason the parcels are created because under old subdivision rules back in the 70s and 80s, there was a requirement to have open space contribution. In the wisdom of the planning officers of the day or the council of the day, they deemed that instead of having riverfront or subdivision to the water bank of the river, they took a slither of land adjacent to the subdivided parcel of land and called it council freehold land for the purpose of open space. Open space only available by river because you couldn't trespass across the land that you've just allowed to be subdivided. So therefore we have a landlocked parcel to land available by river, which it's pretty hard to get a tractor and a slasher in there to go and maintain it. So council in their wisdom have decided to disposal of it as an asset of freehold land to adjoining landowners so that they gain the benefit of access to the land via land, not via individual trespassers accessing it from the river.
Yeah, I'm not wishing to be smug, but I think there would be plenty of people that would be happy to access that land by boat.
But they're only little bits of land.
The point is that it has a value, land has a value, and it is, 1,000 square metres is a significant piece of land, which is, for the price of $1 is going to one particular landowner, a property owner.
Well, it's $1 in the deal, but he's got to pay all the costs. You see whoever owns it to, to survey it, subdivide it and do it. I suppose.
As you would with any purchase.
Yeah, but, the other side of the fence is if it was yours, how would you feel if the council said, no, we're not going to give you, we'll give you an opportunity through a public tender?
Well, personally, I that would be the appropriate way to go, I would think.
Okay. Anyway, well, it didn't happen, and that's probably 2 councils ago, so. All right. Any other comment on it? Okay. Those in favour? Against? Would you like it recorded? It's carried. Okay, 9.15 is the dual lock city units with the lockable carports in Tapio Avenue, Durton. So again, I'll vacate the chair and hand over the Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. We'll now deal with item 9.15, which was the subject of our public forum earlier. We have a recommendation that council approve and seek a mover and a seconder to open discussion, please. Thank you, Councillor Haywood, seconded Councillor Beaumont. Any discussion? Councillor Crisp.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I wish to speak against the motion, and I'll have many references for my fellow councillors that are within your papers, so I'll pause between them as we go through this matter, which is before council. I acknowledge Alex Ferndale from Dearton, who has made a number of very good points in his presentation. There were 6 objections, so this now comes before council. And I think too, as Alex pointed out, this has caused considerable discussion within the Dearton community and has occupied a great deal of my time over recent times. I think there are 2 key points which are consistent in the objections. First, it's our town, our future, Dearton revitalised, and sections 5.3.2, which is page 43 of the strategy, and that's not there. And that, which is on page 197 in your pink section, is to revitalise the commercial precinct and streetscape of Dearton. And that was an important part of the strategy. And there appears to have been opportunities for this to occur. Page 194 of your pink section, the second paragraph there on page 194, and I will reference that with you. And again, that is one of the letters of objections, and in that second paragraph towards the end of it, groups and businesses have expressed that they would rent and use these buildings. So there, and that's again on page 196 in the objections again, in the second, or it appears to be the second paragraph, there have been queries made to the owner to either rent or buy these premises, and the owner has stalled the negotiations. So now, so it appears the opportunities have been lost, and the objectors do speculate as to why this has occurred. Dearton revitalised section again, and this is not in your papers, at 5.3.10, identifies that brownfield sites are the most suitable for residential growth, and that's also present in one of these objections as well. And Hatch Planning have conceded on page 229 of your white pages at the very bottom of the page, under Dearton revitalised, there's a section there that say that the change of use of dwellings will not result in the primary objectives being achieved within the strategy. So I think that there's a concession there, even from the planner, that this is not there. So really, I guess we now get down to where this all hangs. And the application hinges on the term appropriate locations. Page 216 of your white pages, there is a dot point B. Stimulate diverse residential development at appropriate locations in the town. And the objectors and others think that the proposal of this development is not appropriate at that location. I've got concerns which have been expressed to me in the scope of works, that maybe this project is only about getting council approval in order to sell this particular asset, and that there's not a genuine intention for the current owner to start the project, but merely take advantage of a development application in order to sell that. That was also expressed by Mr. Ferndale. Mr. Ferndale did say that he heard that there's already that they're for sale subject to council approval. So this is to lead really about the speculation about the proponent's real intent. When it comes to the property market in Dearden, it's a little bit sad, but we do note that there is a property for lease at the corner of Avoca and Neilpo, which is a 3-bedroom brick home that has been for lease for some time and is not currently tenanted. So the demand perhaps for this accommodation in Dearden has been brought into doubt by some of the objectors. In the submission on page 203 of your pink pages, 203. There is a paragraph there in that particular objector submission, which is listed 1, about some concerns. Mr. Ferndale has echoed those concerns, and I don't know whether this is a repeat because we don't have names and addresses for privacy purposes on the objections, but I think that the points raised there have not been addressed in the conditions. So this is really, should this part of the objection, should it or can this issue be addressed? And that's for councillors to consider. The decision we are making here will set a precedent across the whole of the Shire for the conversion of Main Street shops to flats. So it won't just be in Dearden, it'll be applicable across the whole Shire. And knowing that if there are unintended outcomes, we are powerless to remedy them. The Neilpo flats are a pretty good example of that we know that there's very little we can do if this doesn't turn out as it's intended. So really now, the decision we'll make when we vote on this is, are Main Street shops the appropriate location for flats? Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Crisp, for your comprehensive contribution to the debate. Is there any other councillors wishing to? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So I would like to speak against the motion also. So the number of people who have been in contact with me with concerns around this developmental application would indicate there's significant concern within the community. And just to agree with Councillor Bruce's very comprehensive breakdown on the issues that I don't believe that this is in the best interest of that community, and even though they tick all boxes according to planning, that we as councillors have a responsibility to vote according to the best interest of our community, and I don't believe in its current form that is in the best interest of that community.
Thank you, Councillor Rodder. I'll give the next call to somebody who would like to speak in favour, if there is anybody. In that case, Councillor Nichols.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, look, I'm not sure whether I'm speaking in favour or against. I have huge concerns. We do have a horrible group of flats there that I've looked at numerous times, which have never been maintained. My concern is and I don't usually vote against regulation. My concern is that should this go ahead, and it be not approved, the cost to council could turn out to be enormous. So I'm still sitting on the fence. I know I have to vote one way or the other, but I can see, I'd like to see people in those shops done. I look at the Eileen Kirby Centre and it's a disgrace. I'm looking at the shops at the moment and they're a disgrace too, quite frankly. The shops used to be full. They used to have good custom in them as well, particularly the second-hand shops. So I'm not too sure at this moment, and we've got 2 minutes probably to make up my mind whether I go one way or another, whether I vote with my heart or whether I vote with what I believe is legislation we should comply with.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McAllister.
I don't feel like I can actually vote on this matter because the documents provided under separate attachment have been redacted, so I have no verification in the fact that there are actually objections from real people, although we know they exist because I've also been contacted by people concerned about this too. So I think unless the paperwork can be provided in an open and transparent way, I can't vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beaumont.
Look, I can only echo the sentiments of Councillor Crisp and Councillor Rodder. I don't think this development is appropriate in this place. It is a commercial precinct, albeit that local planning does appear to enable the construction of residences. I don't think it's in the best interest of the Dareton community. And I guess as a flow-on, the challenge probably is if this is refused, this application is refused, that the challenge is that as a Shire, we need to be more proactive in trying to develop that Dareton business area and attract new business to that community.
Thank you, Councillor. On that basis, I might just add that I think we should be assessing this on the planning grounds as presented, rather than speculating about the intention of the proponent. But I would just invite our director to make some comment. A couple of councillors have made mention of the potential consequences of voting against this recommendation. So could you just outline the scenario that council could be faced with, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So as presented before you, there's an application for these units in Dareton. It's been an interesting one to look at and assess with my planning team. The outcomes are, if council approve, then we move forward with DA conditions of consent and move forward that way. If council move to reject or not approve this particular DA, there are two options the applicant can entertain. The first of which is a review of determination, which is done internally by our health and planning team itself, which is made by the applicant or their consultant. The health and planning team do that assessment and represent to council, and it comes back up in a similar forum for a review determination. That is an option that the applicant can pursue if it is rejected. The other option they can pursue is they can just apply straight to the Land and Environment Court for legal proceedings to have the determination reviewed there.
Thank you, Director Carlin. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, through you. So I would just like to say further to that, and whilst I understand on the face of the work done by the planning department, the DA appears on the surface to meet planning requirements. However, I would suggest that there are points in there, as highlighted by Councillor Chris, that were not included in that, and that there's a very high likelihood that should the person putting forth the application took the matter to the Land and Environment Court, that the decision of council to not approve that in all likelihood would be upheld.
Thank you, councillor. And thank you all for your contribution to the discussion. I'll now put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against?
That's a no.
Am I allowed to abstain?
That'll be a no. Okay, in that case, the motion is lost. Put that to a division. Those in favour? Those against?
No.
Thank you, councillor Rodder.
We might just ask for reasons for refusal.
Yes. Sorry, I'll conduct that again. Those in favour? Sorry, those in favour of the recommendation? Those against? The motion is lost. Call for a division. Those in favour? Those against?
What is the resolution of council then?
Okay, thank you. So we need to articulate a reason for refusal on planning grounds. So are we seeking an amendment or a new resolution?
That one's lost, so you'd assume another resolution.
Okay.
In the opposite to that.
In view of it, Deputy Mayor, in view of that, the advice from the General Manager, I move that the planning proposal at 20 be rejected. And then I'm obliged to add a reason to that, and I'll use a broad reason that it is not appropriate for, it's not an appropriate location for flats.
So the wording that was found on page 216 in dot point B. Due to site not being proposed for an appropriate location in the town.
Yep.
Sorry, probably shouldn't be contributing to that.
So I've just kept finding my own paperwork.
Okay, so the alternative resolution is that council refuse the DA, being for converting existing commercial shops into 5 dual occupancy units with lockable carports at address stipulated, due to the site being not an appropriate site for flats. Yeah, I think we should get this wording correct, given the potential consequences.
If I may, if Councillor Crisp is referring to point B, then perhaps, 216, then perhaps the wording should be that the location's not appropriate for residential development, in line with that wording.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Councillor McAllister.
Could I also suggest that Councillor Rodda's comments be taken into account too, that her concern that it's not seen to be in the best interests of the community, considering the number of objections.
Certainly. So due to the location not being appropriate for residential development and given
The high
public
level of
interest and large number of
community.
objections. Now, before we go to the vote on this, would you like me to read this out again, or can everybody see the alternative resolution on screen?
I can't say anything, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, I'll read. Okay, I'll read out the alternative resolution, which is that Council refuse DA 2022/120, being for conversion of existing commercial shops into 5 dual occupancy units with lockable carports located at 24 Tapio Avenue, PT 6 Section 11 DP 758338, 32 Tapio Avenue, PT 3 Section 11 DP 758338, and 36 Tapio Avenue, PT3, Section 11, DP 758338 in Dareton, due to the location not being appropriate for residential living and given the high level of public objection to this proposal. Those in favour of the...
Sorry, just to correct, not residential living, residential development, per the wording used on page 216.
Yes, good pick-up,
Could I just
Councillor.
jump in there, please, Mr Deputy Mayor? I'd just like to point out that it's actually not Tapio Avenue, it's Tapio Street.
Sure. We'll take that as amended. Okay, I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour? Sorry? Oh, my apologies. We have a mover. Councillor Crisp, could I have a seconder? Councillor Beaumont. I think we've had the discussion. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Rodda, in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. I'll now call for a division. Those in favour? Yes, Councillor Rodda. Thank you. Those against? So recorded. Thank you. I'll now invite the Mayor to rejoin proceedings.
Want any comfort breaks before we get back in?
Yes, please.
Yes.
What? Call it comfort break.
Hey,
Comfort break before we get started.
comfort break. All right, well, thank you, councillors. The General Manager has asked that we call a comfort break, so we'll have 5 and reconvene.
Excuse me, I just would like to say that common sense has prevailed here today. I really appreciate
Joe has lost sound again.
Thank you, Councillor Linklater, it's back.
Right, we're right, Simon, we're back on there. All right, we'll continue on. 9.16 is your delegated authority approvals at the end of December. So there's a recommendation there. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Linklater, Councillor McAllister. Any discussion? Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. DA 2022/103, 18 Silver City Highway, takeaway food and drinks premises, $3,000. What are they going to have for $3,000? Is it a wheelbarrow at the front?
Yeah. Yeah. That, if I may. Thank you. So that $3,000 was simply, so that's for, 1, 3, I think that's ship sides. Yeah, that's shippies. So what they did was they came across our side of the river while the flooding was happening. So they moved from the Mildura side and came across to our area to set up, and they've set up on a private freehold land on our side of the river. So $3,000 was just the cost to relocate their shipping container and plonk it down on that piece of land.
No, they're still there.
They're still there, but I don't know how long they're going to be there for. Yep. Yep.
I believe they're getting special consideration at the riverfront now that they're going to be plump where they wanted to be, where they were before, so it's probably a good idea.
They better win. All right, any other questions? All in favour? Carried. Division? All in favour? Carried again. Over December's, and then 9.17 is the delegated authority approvals as of the end of January. Recommendation there again, a move it please. Councillor Linklater, Councillor Beaumont. Any discussion? All in favour? Carried. Division? Carried. Nine. 0.18 is the project and works update. The recommendation there, can I have a move and a seconder, please? Councillor Hayward, Councillor Cooper. Any discussion? Councillor McAllister.
I have brought it up before, but I really appreciate seeing photos. I'd just like to have a date, time stamp on them, just so we know when that photo was taken, if you don't mind.
The Boyle Creek Road one is a...
Yeah, that was going to be...
It's had a hell of a belting.
That particular picture there illustrates damage that's probably over a 200 or 300 metre section at its worst. The rest of Ball Creek Road has numerous other failures right the way through, but that photo there depicts the worst of it.
Total reconstruction?
Yes.
It's unreal, isn't it? It's just stripped that bitumen off it.
Did the bridge hold up? It did, wow.
Councillor Beaumont.
Yeah, just in relation to roads, scheduled for February, roads, Lower Darling Road and Pooncarie Road, both identified as temporary reinstatement of road cuttings. Will they be, I would assume that they will be considered for culvert works when a full reinstatement is...
All we've really done is just
Thank you.
put them back in so we can give people access and... Yeah.
If I could, Mr Mayor?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Rodder.
Just in regards to the projects in the Ball Creek Road, I'd just like to pass on my thanks to the Director of Roads and Engineering for quickly resolving the issue with Amaroo Road being closed due to pumping of water.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crisp.
I was probably looking for a little guidance, but I'll begin. The reinstatement of the back road between Wentworth and Dearton, and particularly at Fletcher's Creek, I would counsel not rushing to do that. There is a suitable detour available while we then consider the best options for that. So perhaps, Jeff, my question is, do you plan to reinstate that road at any time in the near future?
At the moment, the consideration with regards to that particular crossing point that you're talking about, so that is not in the immediate future. At the moment, because we do have other access, so there's a couple of issues to consider with regards to that particular structure at that location, and discussions are ongoing with regards to the appropriate method of reinstatement of that particular location.
Well, I'm not sure you'd want to do it before it stops running. I've been out there for 3 or 4 days. It'd still be running, I'd imagine.
Perhaps
at
at another time, because I have some views and been expressed on this, but it's getting late to have this discussion now. I'll just foreshadow at some point I'd like to talk about options for that particular crossing going forward, and take advice from the front bench on the way to proceed. So I'm pleased if it's not there for immediate, then that gives me time to bring something to council for advice.
Okay, any other queries out of it? Councillor McAllister.
James King Park, the wall, retaining wall design, that's not the one that we've just done, that's for the other side, is that correct? The other side of the boat ramp?
James King Park is it's actually, there's a section on both sides. So there's a section on the downstream side, and the other portion is across the front of the ski beach frontage. So there's further communication to happen with the community with regards to that, now that the proposal is somewhat finalised, for other comments back prior to going out for quotation for the installation of that.
So just to be clear, we built a retaining wall already, and then there's the path, and then there's was a beach. So you're suggesting the retaining wall is at that end of the concrete before the beach, is that right?
Yeah, it's the section between, obviously, the edge of the path and the water, so it's between that section there. So I'm happy to provide the concept and the design back to council for your input and viewing prior to the consultation and then the quotations for the work.
Thank you.
Okay, any others out of that? All right, all in favour? Carried. Rightio. Into closed. Oh, sorry. Yep. Sorry, I've jumped. Number 10 pages stuck together. My apologies. Okay, notice of motions, questions without notice. Councillor Hayward.
Yeah, I'd like a list of certified contractors to handle and do demolitions in our shire. And the other one is who's ready to handle asbestos. And I'd like that report to be presented back to council or
Next meeting? Next meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
There seems to be a lot of demolition going on around the place, which could be pretty shoddy.
Okay, fair enough. Righto. Councillor Nichols.
nobody here. I can't hear you when you talk with a mic. Yeah, Murray Street, a complete report on where we are, why we haven't started, how much are we paying more for native title. I believe they only have one claim on any particular lot of land. I believe that's legislation. So I want to know why we're not started.
Well, I can comment that I don't think the native title situation's all that easy. There's a process happening now where they'll go through an induction course and the developer, and it will commence under their watchful eye.
Yeah, absolutely. The owner is currently, so the contract for exchange of land is 14 days after the issue of the construction certificate. The developer has engaged his design team and getting electrical certifications and designs and all kinds of things. So concurrently, that's happening, and in the mix of the time delays, there was a requirement to do a Aboriginal Cultural Management Plan, which says that the item subject to an Aboriginal site register has got to be protected. And there's 8 recommendations out of that management plan that basically says that the development goes ahead, the site be protected, Aboriginal and cultural monitors be on site during excavation, and before any of that happens, there's got to be an induction onto the site by responsible Aboriginal persons who registered an interest as part of the management plan. If you're lucky.
My understanding was that once native title had been extinguished and a claim had been made and paid for under legislation, that no further claim on those lands were made.
There's no claim for compensation. Compensation, as you and I know, was paid back in 2007 when freehold title was granted to council. This latest realm of works required to support the development application has been brought about by an Aboriginal site being registered on it in 2017. Yeah. I mean, I know you hear it, and I've been saying it for far too long, but the latest work on it was as late as last Friday, where the power design was supported in relation to underground power to the golf course shed, which aligned with the design for the subdivision. I'm pretty sure a representative of the future owner will be lodging a construction certificate sooner rather than later.
Okay, Councillor Linklater.
Thank you. Question for Director Gunn. Is there any progress on any transport strategies relating to a bridge crossing east of Golgol?
Met with various representatives of transport today in Euston with the planning coordinator, is it George's title?
Strategic Development Officer.
Strategic Development Officer. With regards to the transport strategy that is being developed for the Far Western region, of which one of the critical components of that strategy is the cross-border issues and the bridge crossings. So they have a heap of information already in place. We had significant discussions today with further information to be provided by them, and they will provide a draft I think they wanted to provide an early lot of information by, I think, just after Easter for this year for further comments from council. And also, as part of that discussion, they have met with Mildura Council today as well. And so that process will be going forward. They've developed numerous other transport strategies for the other areas of New South Wales, and this is one of the next ones off the rank, which then goes into support future projects and the like going forward. So I'll keep council up to date on the progress of the consultation and what's being presented from Transport with regards to that transport strategy.
I have a quick follow-up to that one. Jeff, does that involve strategic conversations with your counterparts in Mildura then?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so there's a transport strategy currently underway with Mildura Council, of which I'm part of the committee representing the cross-border issues associated with their work.
Councillor Crisp. Councillor Cooper.
Just a couple of things jotted down, and probably back to Director Gunn. The subcontractors that just did the road from Baronga to Wentworth, great job. Do they have their own road management in place, like stop and go guys or roadworks ahead? Or because I've had several near incidents reported to me, and I was nearly one of them myself. So just no indication that there's a grader coming towards you on the road, coming straight at you, and nowhere to go. So happened just out of town here. It happened, and two other people rang the same thing, and it was a bit daunting. So I just thought I'd check about that. I rang the other day too, just when they did do that job. You know, Sam Cross, as you know, lives Koowa, and it's not a big thing. It's just a thing. I think he keeps that place looking schmick, and now they've left a levee bank where they've graded it off because he slashes that whole side of the road, and he won't be able to slash now because there's a mound this high. So would there be a chance of someone running a grader over just to flatten that out for him?
Yeah, happy to follow up on that first issue. They should be following a traffic management plan. They're working for us as a subcontractor for that RMCC work. So I'll follow up with the works manager with regards to those particular issues. And yes, certainly take up that other issue. I understand and I know the location, and we'll arrange for.
He does keep it pristine.
Yeah,
yes.
we'll arrange for that remedial work to be done.
And I'm not sure who this one is for, but just a bit of a continuation of the levee to protect the cemetery down there. I think even if it's just there's only a small gap that the water could possibly get through. I think if it was just red loamed and lawned at the back of the gardens, at the back of the park there, they end up sandbagging it, I think. At the back, the Wentworth Cemetery, at the back of the lock lawns there. I think it breached there at one stage and they sandbagged it, so they're just looking at probably building it up and leaving it as a permanent thing. Yeah, possibly. And one more thing, I know it's probably not Shires, but for the last 2 or 3 months, Murray Street, someone has dumped 2 lounge suites down there. Looks terrible. I don't know if we can get them picked up or just, it doesn't look good. And I know it'll probably set a precedence, we'll dump our lounges out there and the council will pick them up, but I'd get them myself, but I haven't got a big enough trailer. So, but that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rodder. Councillor Rodder. Can she hear?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to make a comment about RZ. RZ Resources have submitted an application for the mine across Huntingdale and Warwick. I understand it covers the whole of the Warwick property. And therefore children coming down. So that information has come back before council as far as I'm aware. The other question I have, I'm not sure who's the right person to answer, but I do have a question in regard to sandbags. Mildura Council have been very proactive in advertising the disposal of sandbags. What, if anything, is council able to offer residents who have a lot of bags to dispose of?
Yeah, we have, so as part of that advertisement that's been on our website and also been in the paper where ratepayers can register to dispose of flood-affected waste, sandbags do fall into that category. So we are slowly getting people contacting council and asking to have that or how they can do that. So, yeah, as applications come across, we assess them and generally approve them and either engage, depending on how many sandbags and locations and whatnot, we generally either authorise a skip to go out to the person's property, or if there's issues with getting a skip there or there's only a small amount of them, then we just arrange for the ratepayer to take their trailer to the tip or the landfill, and it's taken care of there.
Would it be possible, Simon, to have that re-advertised via our social streams?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beaumont.
Okay, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to pick up from where Councillor Cooper left off. I had this item to bring up. And it also stems partially from the furniture that's been dumped at Murray Street. There are also other sites around town, and no doubt there's similar situations around the Shire and other communities. I'd like the council to consider the establishment of a hard rubbish collection policy similar to those that you might find in bigger cities, where at least once a year residents are afforded the opportunity to a free pre-booked hard waste tied bundled branch collection to dispose of bulky, broken and unrepairable household items. As you can guess, I've picked that quote up from us internet site. An initiative such as this may go some way towards decreasing the propensity of illegal dumping in our bushland and nature reserves. It would also promote a tidy town concept by encouraging residents to dispose of unwanted items in a responsible manner. This would assist our ageing residents who may not have the means or capability to get to our waste facilities. So I'd like the council to think about or come up with an option in relation to hard rubbish collection on a at least once a year pre-booked arrangement or something similar. The second item I have. Yeah, more than happy to look into that. We do generally have been running it about every 3 years previously. The last time we did it, which I think was in 2020 or 21, give or take, we actually struggled to find a contractor who was willing to do the work because of manual handling risks of them having to lift bulky fridges and couches and whatnot onto the back of trailers and whatnot. So at this stage, I'm supportive of the concept. We just need to find maybe an alternative way of doing it. I know the research that we did do as part of that process indicated that a lot of councils were actually moving away from the traditional put it on the curbside and arrange for a contractor to come and pick it up and move to something else. So I just need to do a little bit more investigations into what other councils are doing. I think some of them are looking at potentially offering like tokens or something like that for people to take them to the tip for nothing, but that then potentially leaves the issue of, say, elderly people or people with a disability or whatnot who don't have the capacity to or don't have the means to transport stuff to the tip. So yeah, there's a little bit of sort of finessing around how we go about it. Yep, thanks. Thanks, Simon. I think, the idea or the thought of a pre-booked arrangement possibly has merit. So it's not something that's conducted over the course of the whole year, and it might be an activity that might fit with, our outdoor staff and their timetable. Anyway, I'll throw that idea out for consideration. The second point was in relation to the Wentworth, or the foreshore down here at Wentworth, Wentworth Rowing Club and foreshore parking. To me, it seemed timely to consider alternative parking arrangements in that precinct, rather than having vehicles parked willy-nilly all over the foreshore, that we look at, we'll take the opportunity now, post-flood, and before the rowing club start any extension, to consider developing a parking lot at the rear of the rowing club with access potentially off Darling Street. That way we don't have vehicles parked all over the foreshore and on community space. And that's it for me.
Okay, good points, both of them. Councillor McAllister.
Lucky last. So mine was also that council provide a hard waste collection by locality and by appointment. I think I didn't realise that was already being advertised for people with flood damage, but noting that it's been some years since we've done that. Have you tried the Christie Centre? Because they're very good at picking up stuff and taking it to around again. I know you've got contacts.
There's issues around the manual handling and the amount of people it takes to actually dispose of. So yeah, I think there's ways
It's a good trainee employment opportunity, perhaps. And my second question is whether council has a policy or procedure for receiving bequests of heritage artefacts, historical records, sites or intellectual property to be received in the public interest. Does council have a policy is my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, just on what Councillor Linklater was asking Mr Gunn, is that transport strategy finished and ready for us to have a look at, or available for council to provide some input to?
No. They're pretty much in the early stages of...
Part of the issue with some of that information, including the Central Murray Region Transport Strategy, which did come to this council, was that it was not providing updated information, for specifically the New South Wales Regional Economic Development Strategy. And this council also had noticed previously that a lot of the statistics, particularly from ABS, were not reflective of the actual population base in some instances. So it'd be great to have a bit of input to it before it's finalised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes that part of the meeting. We'll now go into close. Councillor Linklater, would you like to?
Thank you, Mayor. My great pleasure to move the following motion that council adjourn into closed session, the recording of the meeting be suspended and members of the press and public be excluded from the closed session, and that access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed session be withheld unless declassified by separate resolution, and that this action be taken in accordance with section 10A bracket 2 of the Local Government Act.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cooper, all in favour? So carried. favour? Carried. You're right. Okay, thank you. I'll hand over to the General Manager to report on the outcome of the closed business session.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. So in closed council business tonight, there was 4 items for deliberation. In relation to item 12.1, sale of land for unpaid rates under section 713 of the Local Government Act 1993. It was resolved that council pursuant to that section and other relevant sections of the Local Government Act authorises the sale proceedings to sell 12 properties listed in the report at a public auction at a time and place to be determined, that Outstanding Collections Australia Proprietary Limited be appointed to administer the sale on behalf of council, that council authorises council staff and the debt collectors to proceed with the necessary arrangements pertaining to the sale of the properties listed in the report, that council delegates authority to me as the General Manager to take the following actions pertaining to the properties specified in the report: to withdraw from the sale at any property that prior to the commencement of the auction had all rates and charges, including expenses to council incurred, to withdraw any property from sale for technical or legal reasons, to set reserve prices for sale of the properties at auction, to negotiate by private tribunal and set offers of sale. In relation to to execute the sale and purchase contracts and property transfer documents under council's common seal. In relation to item 12.2, the Baronga landfill expansion design tender, it was resolved that council, in accordance with sections 1781A of the Local Government General Regulation 2021, accepts the tender from Tonkin for Baronga landfill expansion design to the value of $339,163, including GST. Item 12.3 was the supply and construction of amenities blocks Shire-wide. It was resolved that council, in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government General Regulation 2021, section 178(1)(b) and 178(3), accept the tender from Wall Construction Proprietary Limited to supply and construct the amenities blocks through the 2023 calendar year for the sum of $825,195.50, excluding GST, and the council authorise the Mayor and the General Manager to sign the contract documentation and affix the council seal. In relation to item 12.4, Golgol East Raw Water Tender, it was resolved that council, in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government General Regulation 2021, section 178(1)(a), accepts the tender for contract in the amount of $724,465.40, including GST, submitted from True Dry Proprietary Limited, trading as RDG Electrical, and authorises the Mayor and the General Manager to sign the contract documentation to fix the council seal, and that council approves a variation of the 22-23 operational plan to the value of $724,465.40, excluding GST, which includes a contingency allowance of $65,860 to be funded via the Water Fund. And that concluded the business in closed business tonight.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance this evening. We run a little bit later than normal, but anyway, that's what happens. So thank you, and we will see you next Wednesday here for the Advisory Committee meeting. Thank you, Councillor Rodder, for your attendance up there.